are for the wrap-up for Red, White, Sun, and Moon in finding out what's the best Blood Moon deck series. So Red, White, Sun, and Moon is a Blood Moon deck, obviously, because we're doing all Blood Moon decks. It's based around Blood Moon, Chalice of the Void as the main hate cards, and then outside of that, it is a Red-White Planeswalker control deck with Anger of the Gods, Wrath of God, so a lot of God killing there. Simian Spirit Guide to help get faster Blood Moons and Chalices. Lightning Helixes and Blessed Alliance as our removal, as well as cast out in the main deck due to the fact that we're trying to play Chalice on 0 and 1. Therefore, we want to minimize the effect the Chalice has on it, so we're not playing things like Path and Bolt. Obviously, Path is counterintuitive with Blood Moon anyway. Outside of that, we have Planeswalker Package, we have Gideon of the Trials and Gideon Jura, both of which can disrupt the opponent from killing us. Chandra Torch of Defiance, Card Advantage Engine, Mana Engine, killing creatures with 4 toughness or less, and Nahiri slices, it dices, it gets our Emrakul, wins us the game, gets rid of problematic enchantments, artifacts if they're tapped. Mana base, a lot of planes, because you want to be able to play your double white spells through your Blood Moon. And beyond that, we have the 4 Temple of Triumph to fix our draws, double Gemstone Cavern, so we're on the draw, we can still get a mana boost by exiling another card, and then Emrakul as our win con. In the sideboard, so the sideboard was a little bit thrown together. The list that I took was from MTG Salvation. Don't remember the username. I have very little familiarity with this archetype. I looked at Todd Stevens' original list and tried to find a slightly more updated version with getting in the trials, I think. Fits this archetype well. Blessed Alliances for decks like Burn, Infect, and Death Shadow. Rest in Peace for graveyard things such as Death Shadow and Dredge, Living End, Griselbrand, sometimes even control decks when you don't have anything else to bring in against their Snapcaster mages. Stony Silence for decks like the Paradox Engine we lost to Crackling Ironworks, Affinity, and Tron. Leyline of Sanctity for decks like Burn and with a lot of hand disruption. Crumble to Dust for Tron because Tron is an awful matchup even though we have Blood Moon. We do not kill particularly quickly, so being able to take out a Tron piece, keep them off their mana, and hopefully being able to close out with a Nahiri into Emrakul or Gideon Jura or something along those lines. And Elspeth as an additional Planeswalker for grinding matchups. As far as where this deck stands in the formats, so we played against Dredge, Infect, Bushwhacker Zoo, Jeskai Control, and Paradox Engine. So barring Paradox Engine being a very outlier, but kind of a slow, steady, like Crackling Ironworks-like deck. This deck, in the matchups where it's good, it's very good. It's good against most aggressive decks, not named Merfolk. It's reasonable against Burn, pretty good against Infect, supposed to be pretty good against Dredge. We didn't have our greatest draws against Dredge, and they did have a very knowledgeable player was holding fetch lands to bring their Bloodghast back after Angers, and so someone who understood the effect of Anger on the matchup and likely what deck we were on. So overall, 2-2 in matches that I would say count. Paradox Engine's an outlier. I wouldn't take it for anything other than this deck is soft to certain styles of combo if our hate pieces don't line up. So, once again, kind of like a little bit like Scred in that the creature matchups and the decks that Blood Moon and Chalice are good in, this deck is good, even great. In the matchups where they don't hit as much, like Blue-White X Control, Tron, and where we don't draw the right half of our deck without really having much card filtering, this deck's really clunky, really problematic, so In the right meta games, it can be fantastic, but overall, I don't think it's the best Blood Moon deck, quote unquote, for an open meta. You can find the right meta that's supposed to be like Dredge, Infect, 3-color mid-range decks, that kind of stuff, or decks that Chalice is particularly good against. You draw the right part of your right hate cards for the right matchups. This deck can perform very well, but in an open meta, I don't think this is the best of the Blood Moon decks. I still think that something like either Ponza or Blue Moon might have a better chance against decks where you need to be interacting, card filtration, etc. So, Todd Stevens did excellent work with this deck. If you want to know more about it, go look up what he did with the deck, or look up on MTG Salvation. There are several players still actively playing this and enjoying this deck. I didn't feel it would be right to do a Blood Moon series without at least giving this deck a pass. We might come back to it again in the future, try it out a little bit more once I understand the archetype a bit better. So I hope I did enough justice, and until next time, this is Dusk for Dusk to Dawn Gaming.